Good evening, and thank you everybody for tuning into this third installment of the Black Baroque interview series. My name is Noémie Ndiaye. I am an assistant professor of English at the University of Chicago and the co-organizer of the Black Baroque series. This event is made possible by the generosity of the Court Theater, the Committee on Theater and Performance Studies, the English Department, the Department of Romance Languages and Literature, the Center for the Study of Gender and Sexuality, as well as the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture. Most importantly, I would like to thank our featured artists today, Debra Ann Byrd, for joining us, as well as my partner in design, Gabriel Randall, who will lead today's conversation. And finally, your Chicago PhD candidate, Brandy Williams, who ensured that this event would run smoothly. I am delighted to introduce the third artist of this series, Debra Ann Byrd. Debra Ann, if you might turn on your camera. Debra Ann Byrd is a native of Spanish Harlem in New York City. She is an award-winning, classically trained actress and producer who recently was named writer-in-residence at the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, as well as artist-in-residence fellow at the Folger Institute and an A. Lilia Bundles Community Scholar at Columbia University, artist-in-residence at Southwest Shakespeare Company, where she recently reprised the role of Othello, winning her the Best Lead Actress for 2019 Broadway World Award. She is the founding artistic director of the Harlem Shakespeare Festival, a support organization serving women, youth, and especially classically trained artists of color. She is an emerging playwright and scholar, and recently completed her new critically acclaimed solo show, Becoming Othello, A Black Girl's Journey, which she is going to talk about today. Debra Ann is the 2021 recipient of the prestigious Sidney Berger Award for her work as artistic director and an innovator and charismatic leader of Shakespearean theater throughout the world. Thank you, Debra Ann, for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Tonight is special because the Black Baroque series is hosting not one, but two artists. Gabriel Randall is a scholar, director, and dramaturg. Gabriel, if you might turn on your camera. She has a dual BA degree in drama and sociology from Stanford University and an MA degree in performance as public practice at the University of Texas, Austin. Her recent collaborations include co-directing We Are Proud to Present a Presentation by Jackie Sibley's Jury at Steppenwolf for young adults. She served as the dramaturg and ad for Court Theater's production of Oedipus Rex and dramaturg for College Girls for College Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, directed by Sarah Scott. In Chicago, she has dramaturged and directed for Sideshow Theater, where she is also a company member, Victoria Gardens, Chicago Dramatists, North Lights, and the Words Theater for the Performing Arts. Gabriel is an active member of the Black Theater Association Focus Group for the Association for Theater in Higher Education, and she has served 2 terms as its graduate representative. She was featured in American Theater Magazine's Roll Call People to Watch. She is a 5th-year PhD candidate at Northwestern University. Her ongoing dissertation project is titled On the Possibility of Blackness and the Inevitability of Revolution, How Black Feeling Changed the World. In September 2020, she completed a fellowship year at the University of Chicago, where she was the inaugural Court Theater Research Fellow. Gabriel, I will mention, is also the assistant director for the upcoming production of Othello at the Court Theater, which should open in fall 2021. A brilliant artist and scholar, Gabriel has been key to the Black Baroque project from its beginning, and I cannot think of a better host for tonight's conversation with Debra Ann. Thank you, Gabriel, for being here.
Thank you so much, Noémie. What a honor to be able to conclude such a beautiful and sort of revelatory and invigorating series. And what a joy to talk to Debra Ann. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to talk to you. You are like, wow. and Naomi, of course, is just like, whoa. It's just very exciting to be here.
So just a few words and then I will disappear. to explain how things are going to work out tonight. Debra Ann and Gabriel are going to converse for 50 to 55 minutes, and then we will open the floor for a 30 minutes long Q&A with the audience. I will return after the Q&A to briefly conclude the event. But please do drop your questions into the Q&A box, and Gabby will read them. The chat is for social purposes only, so make sure to differentiate between the Q&A box and the chat. There should also be a box at the bottom right corner of your screen, which you can click in order to get a live transcript of the event. And as a reminder, if you have not watched a recording yet of Becoming Othello, Debra Ann's show, the link is at the bottom of the email you received and you used to tune into this webinar. At the very bottom, you'll find the link, and the link will remain live until midnight tonight. So there is still time to watch the show if you haven't been able to do it yet. And on that note, I will yield the floor and disappear.
Wonderful. Thank you, Noémie. And now that she's gone, we can say all the wonderful things about her.
Oh, yes. give me a minute, Gabrielle. Honey, can I have some water, please? Thank you.
So, Debra Ann, I feel, and I hope this is okay, I feel sort of inspired by the way that you begin Becoming Othello with sort of ritual of calling. The ancestors are actually sort of acknowledging that you hear them calling you. And I think just a moment, right, to sit and reflect and kind of be together. I know that it's Monday evening and it's already been a long week for me.
Oh, yes.
So just acknowledging and living in that moment, I wonder if we could just take a second to just like breathe in together.
Yes, thank you, God.
Yeah. Well, then maybe do that one more time if we need to. And everybody else who we can't see, hopefully you're able to join in this with us. And then one more time. And just a deep breath out your mouth and just release all of the stuff that we're holding. I think one of the most beautiful things about being in a theater space is the ability to commune, right? Like we're sharing air together. And so I think it's easy to take that for granted when you're not together. It's so easy to do a million other things and try to also be present. And so I just want to invite everybody to be present with us. We're just two Black girls having a conversation.
Hopefully a juicy one.
I know, I have so many questions. Well, this is the only thing that I'm gonna read, but I wanna get it right.
Yeah.
So I have my little screen in front of me. Noémie has started with our other two artists with a really sort of provocative and I think super interesting question about the nature of the Black Baroque. So I'm gonna use some of her words as we sort of get into Becoming Othello. So during the first installment of the Black Baroque interview series, in conversation with French choreographer Bintou Dembele, and then later with actor and playwright and creator of American memoir, Keith Hamilton Cobb, Noémie presented the conceit of this series by explaining the Black Baroque as a concept that has two valences. One, because the Black Baroque period, which stretched from the Renaissance to the beginning of the 18th century, is an age which launched the colonial project, the invention of whiteness, and the racialization of Blackness. The idea of Black Baroque itself is an oxymoron. The relationship between the Baroque and Blackness is, as we know, always already fraught. There's a lot of there. On the other hand, to the extent that the Baroque aesthetic is based on beautiful irregularity and characterized by complexity, surprise, dizzying folds, metamorphoses, and illusions, perpetual movement, and I bolded this, self-referentiality, and a lavish profusion of carefully contrived ornaments. There are deep affinities between the Baroque and the aesthetic embraced by many Afro-diasporic artists and theater makers. And I think I'm going to read that description again, because I don't know if I could do a better description of what I felt like watching Becoming Othello.
Mhm.
Characterized by complexity, surprise, dizzying folds, metamorphoses and illusions, perpetual movement, self-referentiality, and a lavish profusion of carefully contrived ornaments. There are deep affinities between the Baroque aesthetic and embraced by many Afro-diasporic artists and theater makers. So I'm interested in any of those things that pop out to you, Debra Ann. I'd love to sort of have you speak a little bit about your work through the lens of the Baroque. As somebody who I was dazzled by your dramaturgy, I'm interested in maybe how you thought about that. But I think for me, the boldness of your self-referentiality and what it meant to your deep commitment to truth-telling in your journey to understand Othello is something that I would love to even just begin this conversation with and begin to think about with you.
Yeah, wow, that sounds like a big thing. I mean, just thinking about, just listening to you for a moment, because for a little while I was like, okay, Debra Ann, what is Black Baroque? You don't even really know that well. So I tried to look it up a little bit, but my time constraints make me say, okay, girl, you can't do all these things. You know, I'm dramaturging one show and directing another show, and I'm in rehearsal for Becoming Othello because it's going live. And so, you know, just a lot going on. But as I think about Black Baroque, and I think about what you just described, and I think about Becoming Othello, as you was describing Black Baroque, I said, oh my God, all of those things are what Becoming Othello is. You know, when I was writing it, first of all, when I thought about it, I thought about writing Becoming Othello because while I was in the process of becoming Othello, in my rehearsal periods, all kinds of strange and wonderful things were happening. Scary things, very heartbreaking things. All those things were happening in reference to me preparing for this role. And so I began to say, you know what? I think I need to write about this. I needed to write about how when I removed what I call all things feminine, when I had no makeup and no eyelashes and no long hair, I used to wear it down my back, and you know, and no earrings except, you know, Othello's little gold hoop, and little short haircut and flattened boobs and boots, and walk with just enough swagger to get it. I couldn't do it full out, man, because my community, they wouldn't really understand. But in my pulling all that together, a lot of people still didn't understand, and they came for me.
Yeah.
What I mean is they came at me like, ew, like, what's that? And when I was feeling those kinds of rejection, it made me say, oh my goodness, you mean differently gendered people, or people who are transgendered, or people who appear to be transgender, or someone who you know was a female, but now they're presenting male, you're gonna have a problem with them and cause them this kind of distress? This needs discussing. And then on top of that, then I'm thinking about what's happening to my feminine body as I took on more and more of the masculine. And then with the changing of the moon, if you don't know what that is, that's like menstrual time. Menstrual time shows up in the middle of me being this full-on man, because my director decided that Othello and Iago and all the women in the company, when we're playing men, they are absolutely men. And so we needed to take on all of that. And so all of that in rehearsal, and then ambulating the street for 8 weeks, I presented as close to male as possible, right? And I had a very interesting time. And so I said, I gotta write about this. And in my writing about it, those experiences, or even if I add to that, that's why it's quite complicated. If I add to that what I needed to pull from in order to access Othello's pain, because when I look at those words of Shakespeare, there's a lot of pain in there to me. There's no way that you can go from speaking regular to all of a sudden you're saying, methinks there should be a huge eclipse of sun and moon, and that the affrighted globe should yawn in alteration. What is that? That's not something that we normally say when we're upset. So there's something must be really deeply wrong in that moment or in other moments when he's afraid or so all of that put together made me say, this complicated thing that is going on in my life and my mind right now at this time, the way these people are treating me, and on top of which my body is betraying the fact that I'm, and psychologically in my head, I'm moving to trying to be a man and behave as a man on the stage and interact with Desdemona. And so all of these things are happening at one time and they're piling on top of each other. And so I write. And before I write, I get these beautiful fellowships, right? Shakespeare, Birthplace Trust, and the Folger and all of that. But I write, I begin to write. And then I get a coach and she coaches me and she begins to pull from me the stories of my life. And like Othello, the stories of my life from year to year, the battles, sieges, fortunes that I had passed. And I ran that shit through. Ah! So I got excited, even from my boyish days to the very moment that she bade me tell it. Yeah. And then she had us tell those stories that you don't want to tell, and those stories that are fun, and those stories that are, and so when I piled all that together, and then she said, okay, now I need to take that and put it all together for this solo show. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that? And then I went to Tina Packer from Shakespeare and Company. And I said, Tina, I need you to help me with this. And I had added some Shakespeare because I knew I was going to need that if this was going to be a Shakespeare piece. My life story on top of some Shakespeare, on top of some Othello, on top of some all that was going on in the moment. And the whole reason why I became an actor and the whole reason why I became a producer producing shows featuring classically trained actors of color, all of that became huge and important. And so I needed to figure out how to tell this story. And I added one of my girlfriend's poems. And my girlfriend's poem that I learned from the 90s had to do with ancestors. Mm-hmm. And then she decided that she didn't want me to use her poem. And then I needed to figure out, well, what am I going to do with these holes in my script? And then I said, you know what? I'm heartbroken. This is having a hard time. Let me check in with the ancestors. And so I said, well, if that was about the ancestors and it made the difference, because I was just doing a history lesson at the top, but the history lesson changes to personal when I add my Blackness on top of the history. And so I said, I don't know what to do, Grandma. I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know what to do, Nanny. I need something. And I don't know how fancy a writer I am, but I need something. And then I heard, I hear them calling. One night I heard that and I was like, oh. And then they said, you absolutely need to say our names. Yeah. And so I was like, okay. And then when I was talking about the Black tutors, I needed to do some research and really look at the Black Tudor books and all those books that help you to understand the Black people who were in Tudor England and get some of their real names. Yes. Their names become important. If I'm going to say Philip Henslow and I'm going to say Francis Drake, what about the Black tutors who were there in Shakespeare's time? What about your own ancestors? What about how they thought and what they felt? And so I slapped that together with some Shakespeare and some history, because I was thinking that at first I was thinking that I was gonna, because there was projection at first that there would be like a cosmos and the stars and things would go spinning and then the audience would see a screen swirling and then you see the earth and then it would point down to Africa and then you would see, all of that was in my big old head. But then I just said, you know what, boo? Let's try simplify. and then once I got to, wow, this needs to open with help from the ancestors and acknowledgement of all those who came before me. And I think that if I do that, then I won't feel like I'm on that stage alone for 90 minutes because I know my help is here. And on top of that, all of my help cometh from the Lord. And so I know I had angels and ancestors and the spirit itself. And so I said, I can't go wrong if I invite these things to the sacred ground. I create a sacred ground with the stage. Every stage I walk on, I bless it and create a sacred ground. And so that's how I begin the show. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think you answered like 7 of my questions. I'm gonna have to scroll down my list. No, I think I hear them calling was so moving and so grounding that I think I can't imagine a version. Isn't that funny, right? There was something else that was so integral to your process. That's often how it works. You build something and that thing isn't there anymore, and the actual piece emerges from what's left, right? From something that might feel like loss. That's like the beauty of creativity, right? Is that if you just sort of leave the space, then the thing that should come comes. I can't imagine it without it. It was so stirring for me. And I think that in the spirit of your truth telling, right? And in the spirit of needing to be honest about who we are and where we come from, right? My deep interest in your interest in becoming Othello is because I've now been on this 1.5 year long journey working with, first as an associate director and now as co-director of Court Theater's upcoming production of Othello. Which I want to talk about titles a little bit later, because we're also not calling it just plain Othello. But the sort of most interesting thing for me has been in unearthing all of the stuff that you say at the beginning, right? About the Black tutors, and like, there's a beautiful thing that Noemi evoked about the Black Baroque being from the word, the Portuguese word Baroque, which is an irregular pearl, right? And one of the Black tutors being the diver, the diver who came from the Ivory Coast, and he was diving for ships in the English Channel, and like there's all of this imagery that comes up, but it's really hard to make the case that it's our history too. And it's really hard to make the case that these legacies, and this legacy of Shakespeare and this legacy of Othello especially, is anything other than something that has happened to us, right? Not something that's happened with us and for by us, right? To bring another ancestor into the room. And so I was so astonished at I guess I'll call it the prologue of your piece, when you said 1604 was a very important year for me. And I was like, go ahead, because
I was there.
Why wouldn't it be, right? Why wouldn't it be an important year for you? Just it's an important year for anybody who has been transformed or transfixed by this narrative, by this story, by what's possible with this journey. And I think that and this is where my question is, I think that you found something that I, in all of my time with this piece, have never quite been able to take hold of. And it's something beyond empathy for Othello. It has to do with your relationship to his story. And you repeat it twice. The thing that he says about falling in love with Desdemona is that, and she heard them into pity, right?
Yes.
And I wonder, and you talked a little bit about it with having a coach come and work with you about bringing your own story, but I just wonder what about the text itself brought out. It's so easy to pass over his stories of he was in war and he got he got enslaved, and there were the men with the head beneath their shoulders, right? It's so easy to pass that over as his need to perform for these other people, but to hear that and hear his vulnerability, to hear his own truth, to hear his need to be wanted, to use your term, and to be loved, and to find that in yourself. I just wonder how that particular journey began.
Well, you know, in my trying to, you know, I know Othello has been done forever and ever by a whole lot of actors, mostly men folks, mostly white men folks, until Black folks were allowed to be on the stage and share the stage, you know, with the folks. And so I really wanted to do him justice. And I really wanted to, you know, I was reading something, you know, by Earl Hyman, and he's played Othello several times. And I had a conversation with him, and I chatted with him, and he said, you know, Debra Ann, what's going to be really important is that we find Othello's, why he's called noble. Why is he called noble? And don't let them get you to play him like he's that wide-eyed, dark painted monster, and that he kills white women just because he's Black. That's some real bold stuff. And so in my body, I always, whenever somebody is charged with being guilty about something, or whenever somebody is not liked for some reason, I look at that person to see what's wrong with them. Why might have they make these choices? Why is it that he felt that he needed, what is it that swayed him and he felt like he needed to kill this woman? What is it, what's going on? And so as I learned at school, I went to Marymount Manhattan College, and I learned a lot of dramaturgy. And so I personally dramaturg each character, and I get to the details. And if there's no details, I create it. I create a mother and a father, and based on the world that they lived in. I'm sorry, the fire engines are going by. I'm in New York City now, y'all. So the based on the world they lived in, and based on what the author says that they are, where they're from and who they are and what other people say about them and what they say about themselves, I add all of that together and come up with some dramaturgy. And so I knew that Othello must have really loved his mama. He kept that hanky. I know from the stories that he tells that he was once a slave, and that's not cute. So I knew that all the things that happened to him are going to weigh on his thoughts and his psyche. Because all the things that, I'm a human, and I know that all the things that weigh on me have to do with what happened to me from the time I was a little child. He tells us that Desdemona was swooning all over herself when when he was telling his story. Not only were they exciting, but I believe that some people believe that those stories should be like dispassionate, and he should just be trying to appease the senators and all of that. And I said, no, this is my first opportunity. Not for the senators, like I'm in the play, but when I think about the audience, this is my opportunity for the audience to get to see that this man is a human. He's not a subhuman. He's not a 3/5 of a man. He's not a whatever. He is a human having a human experience. And he is first of all, if I can get to it and break it down, her father loved me. That man loved me. Or at least he treated me like he loved me. Or at least he behaved like he loved me. And now all of a sudden he want to carry my ass to jail and take me to see the senators? What? So now I'm feeling some kind of way. So that first line is already filled with the confusion, pain, embarrassment about being called to the carpet. I'm trying to break up the fight, hold those swords. Dude, I know you ain't trying to threaten me, because you know I could whip you real quick. All of that's going on in my head. And of course, as you see, I bring the hood. So when I'm able to think about the text as from where I'm from, I know that when you're threatened where I'm from, you're like, what? And you're a soldier? Okay, so you got double bravado, right? And so all of that is going on. And I think about, I start to unfold my life to the Senate. Now, what's interesting is what happened to me maybe a few weeks ago. I was in Arizona and I was looking at the mountains and the hills and all of that. And I started to say this monologue and I began to see my own life, right? So her father loved me, oft invited me, still questioned me, the story of my life from year to year. The battles, now I know I've been bust up. Sieges, I know I have been snatched up. Fortunes, I have got many awards that I had passed. I ran all that through, even from the time I was a little baby girl. When I was a little baby girl, but I played with the girls and I played with the boys. So yeah, I even had boyish days. To the very moment that he bade me to tell it, wherein I spake of most disastrous. You see, that works for me. That works for Debra Ann, the actor, because my life has been disastrous sometimes. So I knew exactly what he meant when he said disastrous chances of moving accidents by flood. Them damn floods, we had to sweep up in the basement because the water kept coming up. That was nasty and disgusting. And floods, and the floods that came through Louisiana and knocked all those people. All of that comes to me when I think about what are floods. The floods that he might have been in had to do with the towns he was in, and the water came rushing and he had to go a running. All of that. The rough quarries, rocks and hills, the rough quarries. I lived on the street in the hood. There was buildings were knocked down and they left all the bricks and we would play on them like it was a playground. And so I was able to see my own self. I was able to see Othello's self. And so when I'm saying that monologue, while I'm doing Becoming Othello, I feel like Othello and I are standing back to back and his energy is going through. And I'm talking about Desdemona, but I'm talking about the fact that I'm about to reveal to you guys, the audience, my entire life. I'm going to lay it forward the same way Othello laid it forward for Desdemona's father and Desdemona. I'm about to lay it out. And so I attach those two things together. My help is already here. I done called in all the ancestors, the white ones, the black ones, the Portuguese ones, the Spanish ones, the English ones, the African ones, the Tainos. I done called everybody here. So now everybody here to help me tell this story. And now I'm charged with and then the fear and the excitement and then the anger that came from the slavery part. And I know that I'm about to go into the part of my story where my story begins. And I know that is deep and heavy, but I'm coming out of the slavery part. And I, like the slaves holed up in the bottom of a cargo boat. And I have that image. My mind is trapped and my body is bound, but I dream of a home in that sacred promised land. So now my Bible comes together with my Shakespeare. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, I think you've hit upon something, right? Because again, this is another thing about titles. Your production of Othello is Othello: the Moor of Venice. Is that? And our production is the full Shakespearean title. So we, in process, have learned that it's not Othello, it's The Tragedy of Othello, the Moor of Venice, a Moor of Venice. And for us, that realization was in the word tragedy, right? And shout out to my student Erin, who I think is on, who helped me understand that, really, that there is that, I think Keith mentioned it last week, it gets said a lot, but this idea that that the thing we take for granted about the difficulty of this play is that, for better or worse, Iago is the dude. Even you said it, right? Like you can't have a good Othello with a raggedy Iago. And
Yeah, can't. Won't work. I've seen one like that. It was horrid.
Because Iago, I'll admit, my two favorite characters in Shakespeare are Iago and Aaron, and it's because they just get it done, right? Like it's and there's a power to their remorselessness that there's something that's so beautiful about what you said, though, right? And it's touching on this idea of it being Othello's play and not Iago's play and not anybody else's play, which is her father loved me and she loves me.
Yes.
And for the idea that this speech isn't to the Senate but to the audience, it's something that's actually deeply transformative, which is the possibility, the expectation, the reasonable expectation he has that everybody in that audience should love him too.
Indeed, absolutely. Because I'm worthy. I'm worthy of love. I look. First of all, y'all didn't snatch me up. Okay, I came up out of that. Okay, and somehow I became a sailor, and then I became a soldier and a warrior, and now I'm actually a general. I lead men, I lead things. I'm worthy of honor and respect. For me, any leader who leads, I don't care if you lead in the grocery store that you own, if you lead in a small not-for-profit that you run, or if you are the president of the college, any leader deserves respect, because that job is not easy. It's not easy leading yourself. And then if you add to it, you got to lead your family. And then you have to lead a bunch of people who have families or who don't have families, who have their own sets of problems. And somehow you have to know what all of that is, know each person as much as you can know them, and somehow pull all of that together and make everybody walk in the same line towards a same goal. Yeah. That is not an easy thing. So I think that Othello in and of himself is already worthy of honor and respect. And so it's my job to get these people in these senators to remind them that I'm worthy of respect. And speak to them in a way where I'm very clear, but then I talk to their manhood, because they understand how a woman is when she falls in love with you. It's not just you putting it on them. And I needed to convince them that this woman fell in love with me, and this is why she fell in love with me. The same reason y'all fell in love with me, because I'm a magical mugger. I'm a magical so-and-so. I'm a special thing. And you guys know it, whether you want to fully acknowledge it or not. We are both very clear. That's why y'all call me here in the middle of the night, because you need me.
Yep. Yeah.
So I walk in confident, but sad and broken, because this man has just threatened to put me in jail. And so when I think about that back then, I don't know what that was like, but I think about all our brothers that's all caught up in jail right now. And the people I know who've been to jail and then visiting jails, all of that makes me very anxious and very upset. So if a man's going to come to me who I thought was my friend, who I thought loved me, and all of a sudden now he's telling me he's going to put me in jail, that's a problem for me. And so I got all this, you see, I got it now. I'm not even playing them right now. I got all of these feelings about, I let him be so deeply emotional and vulnerable, because the way that you get people, for me as an actor person, to really care about a character, or even to just take another look at him, love him. I wanted them to love him up until the point when he actually kills her, and then they're like, oh yeah, he crazy, he done messed up now. But I needed folks to understand that first and foremost, this man is a man who had a broken heart. And so that was important to me to get across. And how I decided to do that made it work for me, because I realized that, okay, so he had no mom, he had no dad, he had no uncles and aunts and all of that. You know, when they snatch you up and they separate you from your family, first of all, you have nobody. And so now he has this woman, and that means he has no name to continue. Now he around a whole bunch of people whose names get carried on, because that's what they do traditionally. And this is the son of this, and this is the son of that. And he has no children, no nobody. So I allowed myself to imagine that he married this Desdemona hoping that they would have a family and some children, some little Othellos run around and all that. Now I have a chance for my name to carry on and my legacy to carry forward. And all of that is going to be possible for me. And then when that was no longer possible, I lost my damn mind. That's how I was holding it.
Yeah.
How else can I explain all the way I say all those things I was saying? One minute I'm, trying to be a good, strong Christian. The next minute I'm like, she dead, So it's just really, and he, all those beautiful words that Shakespeare gives you. Why did I marry? Now, everybody knows what that means. I don't care what time you lived in. And so when I say that, I look right at a man and I look him in the eye in the audience and say, why did I marry? And he looks at me like, damn, boo.
Responded?
Because then I can connect with him and he can see me as a man and not as a Black man. Mm-hmm. But if I can look him in his face and look him in his eye and hit him where I know he lives too, or possibly could live, or know some other men who live there, then he could be very clear about what I mean. Because I'm all dressed like a dude. I got on my mustache, my beard, I got my swagger on, I got my boots, I got my sword and dagger. I'm straight up man when I'm playing Othello. And so I try to work and identify with the men folk in the audience. And when I need to talk to the ladies, I talk to the ladies. When Becoming Othello, I get to play with the audience in a whole nother way because I can speak to the women when I'm saying Emilia's lines, or I can flirt with the men when I'm doing Cleopatra, or I could, the sky's the limit in that show. It gives me room and permission to be whatever. And it's just a beautiful thing to want to do Othello, but then to marry Othello. And, I found it really important around Othello being the Moor part. And whether Moor means Black man, or Moor means North African man, or Moor means any man that's not a white man, or whatever, any of that, I can't go with all these 500 different possibilities. I need to pick one.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to pick one and I'm a Black man and I live here in America, I'm not necessarily thinking about the Black men and how they were back in the day. And I don't know about all that. But what I know for sure in my body is what it means to be a Black man now, because I have Black father, not father, my father Puerto Rican. He kind of Black, but he has an African up in that DNA too. But the Black men who I was around. And so I tried to relate to them and think of from their perspective, an American perspective. When you say slavery, I don't think about the kind of slavery they did in Greece and Rome and all of that. No, I think about slave trade slavery, because it's more live for me. It's more accessible for me. And all the things that he might have dealt with. Like I say this crazy thing about Desdemona. I'm gonna let you ask the next question, but I want to say this really quickly. I say this about Desdemona. I said, Desdemona, she might have been okay if she didn't lie to Othello. Mm-hmm. She just had to put that girl on her. Hey, honey, I'm sorry, I lost it, baby. Whatever she needed to do, but she lied and she lied and she lied. I forgot that point I was going to make about Desdemona and her lying to him and what that did. Around race relations. Yeah. Her lying to him, it was bad enough that she lied, but now he was mad because she lied, but so he felt betrayed. He was betrayed by this one, betrayed by that one, treated badly by this one, betrayed by daddy, and betrayed by Desdemona now. And she was not just another person, but she was a white person. And when I think about that, it's a double heartbreak. I go break, because now I don't have no kid. Now I have no wife. Now another white person is on my nerves. And so when those things pile up, yeah, every time somebody hurts you, even when you move for a space of forgiveness, it piles up. Yeah. Until you can't take it no more. And You know, that's how I've been holding it for Othello, so that it makes some sense to me why he flips. He don't just flip because Iago said your wife is cheating. No, that was some piled up black man being that's some piled up the atrocities that happened to people of color, whether they were on purpose or whether they were, I didn't know I was hurting your feelings, whether you know or not. Every time I get scraped like a stone cutter, that thing gets more and more raw.
Yeah.
Until the skin is exposed, the meat is exposed, and then you can just blow on it and it hurts, and then I lose it. Let just one thing happen and we lose it. That's just how it goes, I think. If I know anything about myself and psychology.
Well, I was just going to say, I think I just read an article in the New York Times about sort of the reckoning within psychology and the call for Black psychologists for the field to recognize itself and recognize some of its founders, especially in American psychology. And there's an entire history of diagnoses, right, of Black men with psychosis that's attributed to their race, rather than to the circumstance and to the affect of the race, right, to what it means to be in their bodies. And so I think that, like, when we think about this text as being ours, 1604 was a very important year for us, right? That there's something that's already getting called and conjured, which is that you can either choose to see Othello as someone who has a lifetime of experience and we are watching the last moments of his life, which is a culmination of real human things, or you can imagine that Othello is someone who exists only in relationship to how he can be manipulated and used by the people around him. And I think the former choice is much more interesting. And it's much more
absolutely, because just to be manipulated just because someone said, you mean to now I run around just believing that every person who just tells me anything? No, he had real relations. To me, in my head, he had real relationships. He had real relationships with these people. If Iago was his ensign, he had to have his back. He's the one who goes and looks out and makes sure you check out everything and come back and deliver the news. I count on him to do that for me. I don't expect him to come back and tell me a lie, because every day we go out, every day we on the field, every day we out there in the battlefield, we have to trust each other. I have to trust that this man is going to bring me the truth. And time again, we've had victory after victory after victory. How do I know we had victory? Because I'm still alive. I'm not just still alive, but I'm in charge, which means that under my tutelage, or I was such a great soldier, I got promoted up through the ranks, and now I'm a general. We've had a lot of victory, and Iago has been my dude. He's been with me. So he's not like just somebody just coming up to who I don't know, who's like, yo, let me tell you about what's happening. He's always telling me about what's happening with the people around me. And I believe him. So it's not that he was just dumb. Well, I can't believe why he's just so dumb. No, he had to trust that dude. Michael Cassio, well, yes, was his friend, but Michael Cassio was the kind of guy who, you know, some men are a little more gruffy than others. They're not going to be invited to the fancy party, the dinner party. But Michael Cassio could go to the fancy dinner party and he could slip Desdemona a note for me. Yeah. Iago couldn't go in that party and slip no notes. He was a little bit he wasn't too refined enough to go to the party where the senators go. You know, when you had to go to those upper echelon parties, the folks from the regular hoods, they're not up in there. Michael Cassio was able to run some interference for me and slip me a few notes.
Yeah.
I was invited because I'm the general. I had a title, right? And so it's not about him just being like this weak man who's just manipulating. He's just a weak Black man. No. If I add on top of this, I carry around if you think about it, I'm not saying men don't do this. What man do you know carries around his mama's handkerchief? Why is it so sacred to him? It's all that he has left of her. It's all he has left to remind him. I mean, of course, he has his own memory, the faint memories that he can have, but he can't sit around just pondering about and dreaming about my family and Africa and my mother, because he has to be somewhere thinking clearly, thinking critically, thinking strategically, really on top of his game with all these people that he has to manage. So, you know, when you think about, and then he's a soldier. Soldiers, they go through some really serious PTSD stuff. I mean, straight up. Can you imagine having to go out into the field and then you're fighting for, you know, you're trying to win these battles and you have to chop somebody's head off, you have to stab them, you have to kill them. And killing as a profession is like, when you finish killing, what's left? What do you do with yourself? I mean, you kill a bug and you feel bad. So, I mean, killing another human being is like crazy. And so it's just, I don't know that because I haven't done that, but I can imagine about what that might be, the strength that you have, the amount of angst and anger you have to have as you forcibly slice through a person. All of that is a lot to deal with. It hurts just to cuff somebody out.
Yeah.
To actually take somebody. See, I'm just thinking about what I know, how humans behave based on what I personally know and based on what I can imagine happens in the mind of a soldier or someone who comes out from the field. He's been out from the field for a while, you know, and he recounts these stories to the people because they think they're interesting, but they don't think just the war stories are interesting. They think that his little boy stories are interesting. They like hearing about the dangers he's had passed. You know, that's the moment it was like, and she thought it was pitiful. No, it was more than pitiful. It was, you know, and so it's just beautiful trying to discover all of these things as an actor, trying to figure out these things as an actor. Was really beautiful and amazing journey to go on. You have to be a little bit careful because when you go that deep into Othello's psyche, even when he starts to lose it and he starts talking about the plumed, the audience is like, excuse me, what is he saying? He done came in there. Now his heart is broken about a woman and he came back talking about the ships and the fife and the drums and because he knows, whether the audience knows or not, he knows that his heart is so messed up, his head is so messed up, he can't even think straight to be strategic. Because when you fall that deeply and that madly in love, it messes with your mind. It's hard to concentrate on anything that is not that. And so now he's coming in and he's frustrated and he's talking to Iago about the plumed troops and the fights and all of that because he knows that his occupation is gone. Why is his occupation gone? Because his mind is now messed up. I saw it not, thought it not, it harmed not me. But as soon as he thought it, and as soon as he could imagine it, if he imagined some of the worst thing, I mean, men get mad when another dude looks at their girl. If he thinks that another man actually had his woman, they lose it. They seem to me to be a little more less forgiving than the women. And so, you know, dude was like, what? I said, say what? And he lost it. He lost everything. And so, you know, he made some really funky decisions after that.
So a couple of things. One, we have just talked with each other for almost an hour. We knew this.
Have we?
We knew this was going to happen. And so I want to open it up to the Q&A, but I do have one more question that I have, as you know, a dozen more questions. I haven't even asked you the things I told you I was going to ask you, but I was really struck in watching Becoming Othello, right? And you've made this beautiful distinction about your journey from playing Othello, and then knowing that you needed to write and respond about your experience and how that took you deeper than you thought it would take you. And your relationship to this character, if I had to describe it again, I would say what I started with, which is it's something more, it's something deeper than empathy, right? You feel with and for this character as a man. And that feels like a lot of that came from your experience of the experience of, outside of the quotations, right, becoming Othello.
Yes.
But I wonder if in the process of making Becoming Othello, A Black Girl's Journey, you were able to use that same impulse for yourself. If you found deep empathy in Debbie and then Debra Ann and some of these figures from your past, there's a way that that you have so much care and so much circumspection for your own journey. And I'm just interested in what that process was, right? Do you feel more empathetic about yourself because you've been on this journey?
Yeah. If I could just say it, yeah. I mean, once I'm a Christian girl, and I grew up in the church, and I really, really, really much wanted to be a reverend. And I really learned all of those years that, it is really important to check in on yourself. And so because I learned back then about forgiveness, and not just forgiveness of other people, but forgiveness of yourself, I learned about figuring out how to be okay. I learned about I learned about faith and how to pick your battles, and I had to learn how to hold on just a little bit longer. I had to learn, because life was really, really rough, and sometimes you just gotta just hold on. And so as the wind's blowing, you blowing this way, you just gotta really hold on as tight as you can. And so, once I really learned how to, I guess, say even just the beginnings of loving myself, even before I wrote Becoming Othello, but then after I wrote Becoming Othello, before I wrote it, I always tried to go in myself and figure out what's wrong, what's the matter, why am I not at peace? If there's anything in the whole wide world that I say, what do you want, Debra Ann? I want peace. And in order to get peace, I needed to be able to go into my body, into my mind, and carve it out one story at a time, and come to peace with the fact that I had to leave at home at 14, and that my mom was an alcoholic, and that she died in the streets, and that my grandma put me in foster care because I got pregnant at 16. And then, so I had to deal with each of those things and each of the people, and think about what that meant for me, and think about what it meant for them, and why they may have done that, and why they might have made those choices that they made. And so when you're an actor, you get to figure out characters and who they are and why they say what they say and why they might have made those choices that they made, so that when you get on the stage, you can really try to bring that forward for the audience so that the story can be told. And so I did that to myself. I needed to figure out, who are you, girl? And when I was dressing like Othello, what was really interesting was that the world was really a different place for me. And when I say that I used to get on the bus and people would get up and give me their seats, or people would hold the door open for me, or people would just smile at me when I'm walking down the street, that happens on the regular. But when I looked like presenting like a male, none of that happened for me. So now I had a new empathy for menfolk. And then when the ladies started to push up, I wasn't sure about all that, but I was kind of trying to figure that out for myself. And then when you're at the bar, you gotta like buy drinks. So I was like, damn, it's kind of expensive being a dude. So now I had a different kind of empathy for them because they're expected to be the provider. So now they don't give you the seats. They don't open the door. They barely talk to you when you walk by. You got to pay for every damn thing. It must be a little hard being a man. So all of that came. And then all of the other part came where if the mental stuff came when I'm trying to be a man, but my boobs are hurting and I'm having menstrual, the confusion of that, actively working to be a man because I'm needing to play a man and my body is behaving like a woman, I began to imagine what's happening to females who transition and begin to present as male. What happens to their mind every month? I'm an actor. This is happening to me. What's happening to the women is actually, or the female bodies that is really happening to? What's going on for them? Are they okay? All of that was going on. It's really, really deep and really, really layered. And I thought about the love I have for the people in my story, and I thought about how they might feel, whether they're living or whether they're passed on. I thought about myself and how vulnerable I knew I was going to be by telling my stories. But I thought that if I shared my story, like the preacher I was going to be, some of my favorite preachers are the ones who tell stories, and they tell stories about themselves in a contemporary way. And then they connect them to Bible stories so that you understand better the word. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I could, and being a minister's wife, I was also a minister's wife. I had to counsel people. So I understood what it meant when people come to you and they say, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that, I'm dealing with this. And then you're able to share your experiences, and those experiences and that sympathy, empathy helps people to see themselves, help people to understand themselves, help people to forgive themselves, which is one of the biggest things, or to forgive their parents. And the kind of forgiveness that's not like, oh man, they hurt me, I'm going to go ahead and be okay. But no, it's like I let go of the pain that situation caused, and I work to be at peace. Mm-hmm. I find my own safe space. I create my own safe space. And I can't have a safe space and a clear mind if I'm so worried about what Bob did and Sam did and Deirdre did and Judy did. And I'm worried about what all these people did and how it just messes you up. You don't have a clear vessel for you to lead anything, including your own life. Yeah. And so I decided to clear my space as often as possible. And then my mentor, Dr. Barbara Ann Tears, like Debra Ann, all of this is about human transformation and spiritual growth. If you can get some spiritual growth while you transform yourself as a human, you're going to be all right on the planet. But if you don't get those two things, it's going to be a bumpy ride anyway. But the ride will feel much more jolting and much more bumpy and much more painful if you don't figure out how to clear away the debris that comes with, that just blows through your life, or some of the funky choices we make, or the silly choices we make, or the scared choices we make. Sometimes they end in something that's really not good for our psyche, for our body, for our mind. And we need to figure out for ourselves how to clear that space. And when it gets too heavy, I do what the book says. And the book says, cast all your cares on me because I care for you. So if I was weighted down with a load of care, I'd be like, you know that song, turn it over to Jesus. He can work it out. He can work it out. And I let all of that help me to figure out a space where I can still stand tall and walk into a space and know that I'm good.
That is, I don't know, that is so beautiful and moving, not least of which because one, you just performed, and this is the experience of watching Becoming Shakespeare, right? A masterclass in dramaturgy in something that is so that we might imagine as simple and not classical, right? Because you did it through your relationship with
Mr. Shaky? Shakespeare?
No, with the Black church and with your life experience.
Absolutely.
With
Absolutely. I married King James Bible to Shakespeare to I pulled in all of the things that have influenced me. Martin Luther King, Shakespeare, King James Bible, Dr. Tier,
I love
Reverend
that.
McCullough, all of that.
I love
Everything that has made me me, I pulled it in.
And
I pulled all of that.
That is masterful dramaturgy, but also what you've done is, because you had empathy for Othello, you were able to go on a journey where you found not just the fact of empathy and the fact of peace, but the type of empathy that you were bringing to him, you brought to yourself, and the type of peace you crave for him, you also demanded for yourself, and back in through that. A thing that we're discovering in this process is, if in the process of understanding characters as humans, you don't get to choose just one, right? And so you have a journey of reflecting and engaging with these people who have loved you, who have harmed you, who have mentored you, who have abandoned you. You all of a sudden, when we get back to the play, when we get back to the tragedy of Othello, More of Venice, then Amelia is enriched and alive, right? And Bianca is enriched and alive, and Michael Cassio is fleshed out, and maybe most importantly, Iago isn't just a villain, he's someone who we might ask, why did he do that?
Yeah, do what's up.
Yeah. Yeah, which is beautiful. Okay, we have to answer some questions.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get in trouble. You're not gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble if I answer some question. So this first one is from Kim Hall. It says, "Hi from West Harlem. Thank you for becoming Othello. I could listen to you two all night. I'm wondering if either of you can comment on Ntezake's early disavowal of the great masters of her after her mother Courage, specifically Shakespeare's performance. And Debra, can you talk about how you beautifully become a collaborator with both Shakespeare and Shange, which I love. Yeah, you know, I love all of it. I owe not one more moment of thought to the status of European masters. I don't have to worry that Ira Aldridge thinks poorly of me for not accepting a challenge." So, and that's in quotes. So I think space of that question, right, with Shange and the entire movement, right, and moment she was in, is this moment of disavowal and moving away, and I think maybe this is also a moment I want to mark that you have now called Dr. Barbara Ann Teer's name twice, and this is also a place where she lived, right, in with her National Black Theater, and the type of new classic and new work that she was hoping to make for the community. So I'm wondering if you could just speak a little bit about this marriage of Shakespeare and Shange. I love that.
Absolutely. So my marriage of Shakespeare and Shange, and my marriage of Dr. Tier and Debra Ann and the National Black Theater and Take Wing and Soar Harlem Shakespeare, they are a melding of the two things. So as an actress, I got to play for Colored Girls. And I didn't get to just play one of the roles. I was in a show where they just cut it all up. I got to do the woman in brown and the woman in yellow and the woman in red. I got to do all of those in her piece. And so I got to understand and live what she was doing, what she was saying. I sat up one night walking a boarding house, screaming, crying. I knew exactly what that meant. I had just come from a divorce. I was very clear. And the power of Blackness that Dr. Tier taught me. And she said, Debra Ann, I said, Dr. Tier, you don't need Shakespeare. She said, Debra Ann, I need you to get this from me. It's not that I don't like Shakespeare. I was a Shakespearean. I did Shakespeare with Peter Brooks. It's that I don't like that these Western people and these Western masters say that this is better than that. And so I support you, not necessarily because you do Shakespeare and the classics, but because your mission is to help Black people. And my mission is to help Black people. And so she said, whenever you're doing these classics, make sure you find a space for Blackness. And so in that challenge to me, I had to figure out, how do I marry Blackness with my my facility for language, or my love of words and my love of the Shakespeare text? How do I do that? And then, of course, as an actor person, knowing what those words are that Shange are saying, understanding what a lot of those stories are in For Colored Girls, having lived through a lot of them or know people who've lived through them, I'm able to connect to them. And the one thing that all of these things have in common is emotions. When I can get to the emotions of what Shakespeare wrote, the words he wrote for Othello, and I can get to the emotions that come with what Shange wrote for the women she wrote for, I always get to see the human person. And us, what's really important for me is the emotional journey. The words are really important, but the emotional journey attached to those words are even more important for me, because it is how I connect with the audience, with the people that came to see it. So my only conflict I was having when doing my Shakespeare was, especially when I was playing Othello, my hood self kept showing up, and I was feeling some kind of way about, okay, so how does my hood self, because I guess the men I was influenced by are all from the hood, or, you know, and so I was like, how am I going to put Shakespeare's words on top of this rhythms and this, you know, this dude that I'm coming forward from my body? And then I said, you know what, boo-boo, you got to marry them and let that be okay. And just like the races are mixing, and you can't even see a TV commercial without mixed race couple now, I said, well, I'm gonna have to, for some reason, I love words, I love language, I love speech, I love witty stuff. I love that stuff. That stuff makes me very happy and very orgasmic, and all of that is very exciting to me for some reason, of which I didn't even know what it was. But the first time I heard Shakespeare, it was a Black troupe of actors performing Shakespeare at the Harlem Victoria 5. I didn't even know that this was something that we weren't allowed to do. So when I went to school to learn Shakespeare and to be a Shakespearean, I had no idea that they was going to tell me that that was not okay. Yeah. And it was the first time that someone told me that it was not okay to be whatever I wanted to be. And at that point, I wanted to be a Shakespearean. So I just, you know, and the way I hold it right now is I think of, oh, my Puerto Rican accent showing up for some reason. The way I hold it right now is that I think about Ira Aldridge. I think about Jane White. I think about Henrietta Vinton Davis. I think about Earl Hyman. I think about so many others, Paul Robeson. I think about all of them and how they really love Shakespeare for some reason, who knows? And the fact that they had a rough time doing it. And then when it was time for me to graduate college and they told me that I was not going to be a Shakespearean actor because I was brown, I thought about all of them and I said, there's some wrongs here that need righting, and it has nothing to do with Shakespeare. It has everything to do with social justice. And if I can use Shakespeare to clear some of this social justice stuff, if that's what I got to do, God, are you trying to tell me that I'm supposed to be doing some Shakespeare and telling stories and that gets me into the doors with the people who really need to hear the message? Then I carry my Shakespeare behind into those rooms and I talk to them one-on-one about Blackness. Or I talk to them one-on-one about what it means to be a classically trained actor of color and the things that we have to face up against. And then they look at me differently. They understand differently. They see themselves differently. They understand that this thing can't be you over here, I'm over there, and these things don't match, these things don't work. Because when you look at Becoming Othello, you are very clear that these lips are supposed to speak those words. Yeah, I can speak them so clearly, like if I wrote them myself, because I can attach to the human emotions, feelings, psychology things that's in those words. Who don't know what it means to be or not to be? Who don't have those kinds of questions? Who don't get frustrated and aggravated and hurt and betrayed and lied to and are liars and cheat and are cheated on and happy and sad and in love. Who don't understand all of those things? So for me, I just make it about that. I make it about having a human experience, and I try my best to add whatever culture, whatever Blackness, whatever clear speaking of the speech, whether I do the script straight and don't add Africa, or I do the script, doesn't matter. If I can speak these speeches, if the bottom line for me was this: when I was coming to Shakespeare, I went to school to learn it. And when I got there, I learned it. I paid my $75,000. I learned all those things I was supposed to learn. I learned how to sit, how to speak, how to hold a fan. I learned all of that. And then I'm going to graduate, and then you're going to tell me that I can't do this, or I'm not supposed to be doing this, or why am I doing this? Because I just paid to do it. And if you would have told me before I got there and paid all the money, then maybe I would have thought about not doing it. But because I had already come through it, I had wasted 4 years of my life. I had spent all these $75,000. I had deeply invested in myself to be this thing. And now you're telling me it's not possible? That don't work for me. That couldn't work for me. And so now I'm on a Shakespeare mission, because I know that Shakespeare can possibly get me into doors where I can speak to people and cause them to understand that we got to stop this separating thing. We got to stop this. I don't like you because you're Black. I don't like you because you're white. Mine is better than yours. Words, we all have words, we all use words, we're all attached to words. And yes, I can do some August Wilson, I can do some Ntozake Shange, I can do some I can do some other Black poets and other Black writers. I can do some Rita Dove, I can do some Steve Carter. I can do all of that there, and I can do some Shakespeare, and I can do some Oscar Wilde, and I can do some Moliere and the damn Rivals, and be brilliant, because I'm trained to be. And that's not like a bragging thing, but because you taught me how to work my behind off so that I can be the best actor I can possibly be. Now give me space and let me be that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think what I'm holding on to.
I'm sorry, I'm talking all loud and wild. Let me calm down.
Who said so? Dr. Volunteer said to bring some Blackness in, so. Also, people can control their volume at home.
Oh, that's true.
So we can be as loud as we want. I think what I'm holding on to is there's so many questions about representation, right? And it often comes down to, oh, we only have so many images of us, so they have to be a certain way, or who are we going to see in ourselves if we don't see somebody doing something particular. But I think what you said was so profound, which is I didn't know I couldn't do that because no one had told me I couldn't yet. And so what are the things that we can do when no one has told us we can't yet? And that, I think, is such a profound statement about the possibility of performance, of Black performance, of Black people, right? Is that the limitations aren't always about the limitations are almost never about what we can imagine for ourselves. It's almost always about what somebody else can't imagine for us. And that is the weight, right? And shedding that weight, which is so much of your work, is the freedom and the liberation. And that word kept on coming back up in my head. That I never thought, I've tried really hard. I work at a theater where the Center for Classic Theater on the South Side of Chicago, right? I have a really hard time understanding the classics as a place for liberation, but there's something about the way you talked about what it meant to step into those roles and to step into those bodies as liberating and liberatory that that was really just astonishing to me.
Absolutely. When I think about the double, and I'm going to call it the double or the triple, or I just think about my mentors, just them. When Reverend Jackie McCullough says, "You're a daughter of the King, and the sky is the limit," and Reverend Byrd, without a vision, the people perish. So then you start to learn to become that I am royalty and I need to be visionary. And then you meet Dr. Barbara Ann Byrd, who is royalty and who is visionary, and who tells you that you have the power to create what she calls high magic. Mm-hmm. And so now I couple in my, for lack of a better word, my Pentecostal Baptist self, my fully, that with the confidence that comes from knowing that, I walk with angels and I'm a daughter of the King. Who is this King? The King of glory, the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. That King, that's what I'm talking about. So when I coupled that, which the confidence that Dr. Tia tried to instill, you're going into the courts and the public places and the government places in Albany. I need you to do this exercise with me. Come on, Debra Ann, get on this phone and let's do this. What are you trying to say, Dr. Tia? I got on my high heels, I got on my business shirt and my black suit, and I got to go in there and see these senators and these assembly people. And she's like, come on, let's do this. Now get walking down the hall. And I'm walking down the hall and she says, I'm bad and I know it. I'm black and I'm bad. I'm bad and I'm black. So when somebody starts putting those mantras up, okay. I hadn't totally got with the ancestor piece yet. I still was a little afraid of that, but she housed the largest Black Yoruba sacred collection in the Western Hemisphere at the National Black Theater. I had to get used to it. I had to get used to those statues and the Igbos and all of that. And I learned to understand. But so between my gospel self and the kind of mentors I had around me that empowered me all the time, Jackie McCullough, Reverend Daniel Byrd, and Dr. Tia, my godmother, Teresa Freeman, my best buddy, Tom, David Weaver, between all of these leaders who, for lack of a better word, held me close, held me up, challenged me, rebuked me, corrected me, loved me. I couldn't help but to learn how to go into a space, understand where you are, understand the people who are there, and figure out how to love them. Mm. And in my doing that, I've had a whole lot of wonderful experiences and a whole lot of crazy, challenging experiences. But right now in my head, I'm trying to figure out how to love as many people as I possibly can and how to stop being in pain around everything. If you remember that one thing I said, all I want is peace. And not just peace for me, peace for everybody. And so that's where my minister self comes in. How can I share and spread just peace? If you don't want to be with white people, if you don't want to be with Black people, just be at peace. Don't be mad and angry about it, trying to hurt each other. Be at peace over there if you don't want to be mixy-mixy. No one says you have to be mixy-mixy. You can be totally over there and I can be totally over here, but we don't have to pass each other and smack each other on the back of the head. Mm-hmm. Find the peace, find the love. That's pretty much all I'm pretty much saying, I guess.
Yeah, let there be peace and let it begin with me. Okay. So I think we have time for one more question. I've gotten two that are a little bit similar. So I'm gonna read both of them. So the first is from Serafina Halprin. Do you expect the show to continue evolving, or do you see it as a response to a very specific moment in time? Will it always be Becoming Othello, or do you now plan to move on to something new? So that's a beautiful way of asking what's next. Mm-hmm. And from someone else you mentioned COVID towards the end of the recorded performance, and it was recorded in December last year. And the question is, have the events of the past year, including the resurgence of the BLM movement, affected the play, its message, or your relationship to them? So I guess the question is Becoming Othello still becoming? How, where and how will this piece continue to live? And what is next as you are continuing to become Debra Ann Byrd?
Well, there's a lot of becoming coming. And so first off, I started to create Becoming Othello in my mind in 2015. I began to create this thing about social justice in 2000 when in school those things happened to me. And they happened to me, you know, as it relates to race. So this thing of race and social justice and using my theater as a social justice platform to make change in the American classical theater, that was all on purpose. And that started almost 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so my Becoming Othello journey started in 2000, and then in 2013 when I actually got to pay him, and then in 2015, and then in 2017 I went to the Fold. I went to the Folger in 18, but I went to the Birthplace Trust in 2017, and I told them that in 3 years I was going to have a play ready and I was going to have a memoir ready, because I didn't know if I wanted a play or a memoir. But so I just said, just doing both, boo-boo. So, and so my play was already there and already about what it's about. Mm-hmm. Hardly any of it changed. By the time the play got up to the public and was in its workshop form, COVID happened and Black Lives Matter happened. It was all in divine order. I didn't make it up during COVID. It has been a journey all along, and I wrote it in 2017 and 2018 and 2019. And then by the time 2020 hit and I was performing it at the Phoenix Art Museum in Arizona is when COVID happened and Black Lives Movement blew up. And I had a hard time, and for a minute everything was going crazy. And I'm a member of the league, the Shakespeare Theater Association, and that was blowing up, and it was just going crazy. Predominantly white institutions everywhere was having problems, and everyone was blowing up. We see you, white theater, all of that was happening. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? What am I doing? Am I doing right? Am I doing good? And what about a show? What about this? And I really started to lose it for a minute. Mm-hmm. And then I heard, girl, calm down and go ahead and be okay. You're not new to this journey. Boo, 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 boo. Pay attention. You have been walking this very same walk and saying these very same things for the last 20 years. Don't let nobody try to tell you that what you're doing and how you're doing it is wrong. You've been on the battlefield all this time. You've been walking into these institutions knowing that you might get called out, knowing that you might get a smack upon the head, knowing, sitting in front of cameras, that Black people sit in front of cameras with you and say, ew, why are we doing Shakespeare anyway? Black Lives Matter. That happened to me back in 2018. And it was someone I loved and respected. And I was like, yes, Black lives do matter. And my life is Black. And I like Shakespeare. So why doesn't it matter? Mm. And so I had to deal with Black people. I had to deal with white people. And so by the time COVID happened, and so at the end of the play, COVID wasn't on my list of things we need to fix. But by the time I did the recording, COVID was happening. I did it in the middle of COVID, so I added that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't change my play at all. I was struggling with what I should do, how I should change, or whatever. No, my play was the truth. It was my truth. It may not have been someone else's truth, but it was my truth. And so I decided that this is what it's going to be. And this is the story I'm going to tell. And I'm going to end it where I'm ending it. I'm going to end, and when COVID's over, maybe I'll remove that word. If COVID is ever over. Yeah. But I'm not going to evolve it now. That's why one of the reasons I have the memoir, which I'm working on now, and I can add things there or change things. It will have interviews with other Black female Othellos, with the first female Othello in America. There will be some talking about her, and then my own life and my Becoming Othello story. And then there's a documentary film. So Becoming Othello is like 3-pronged, and it's going to be happening at least for the next 5 years. And so now I did do a recording of it, but I get to perform it live up at Shakespeare and Company in July. July 16th to the 25th, I'm up at Shakespeare and Company in the Berkshires, up in Massachusetts, with Tina Packer. Tina Packer is directing it. Tina Packer is really holding me tight and close and really trying to take real care of me, because this story is not an easy thing to tell live, especially going through calling in the ancestors. You don't know what's gonna happen. And then going through all those kinds of retelling of my life story, some of it really hard and painful and difficult. And you need a special kind of care of the actor, because, you know, like one of my mentors taught me, she said, you know what, boo-boo, your body does not know that you're just playing. This is a play, but your body doesn't know you're playing. And so you're gonna have to be careful with how you allow those emotions daily to hit your body when you're playing these characters. You have to learn how to leave it there on the stage and how to clear your space so that you can come back out and be Debra Ann, and then go back and pick it up, put on what you need to put on, and then perform it again. So yes, Becoming Othello is going to be at the Shakespeare and Company, and then I go to Lincoln Center, and then I go to Indiana, and then I go to Pennsylvania, and then I go to Prague. It's doing its thing, Becoming Othello, and I'm starting to be live in venues, and so it's my very first run of it, and I'm kind of like a little scared and very excited, and hoping that my not even hoping, I'm working on my body holding up with the weight of the work, and with the seriousness of the message. With the sharing, I'm holding it as ministry. So as I hold it as ministry, then I know that my help is with me, not just ancestral help, but if it's ministry for me, if I feel like I'm called to this craft and I'm called to the people, then I believe God got me and I'm gonna be okay. I hope I answered the questions, that last two or three.
I think you absolutely did. And I just feel compelled to share a beautiful word that someone just shared with me, which is, girl, come down and be okay. You've already been on this journey. And there's so much more. There's so much more. So beautiful. I'm gonna live that. Just be okay, because it's not the beginning of things, right? And it's not the end, which is so beautiful.
Yes.
I think as we wrap up, I'll just ask Noemi to come back and close out this series. But Debra Ann, I just don't even know. We just had so much fun.
Indeed. We gotta do some. I'm gonna do this series called Tea Time with Debra Ann. And so maybe you could just come on there and we can do Instagram Live, and then we can chat some more over tea time, and everybody get their teapot out and chat and drink some tea.
I would love that. I would.
And especially Noemi. Yes, I would love to chat with you on tea time.
That sounds wonderful. Literally anytime. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing yourself and your beautiful work with us. What an honor it was to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. All the best to you when you're over there directing Othello. You know, make it happen. Make it happen.
Somewhere between Jeremiah 29:11 and calm down and be okay. I think I got it.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead and be okay. How are you? Are you being okay? I see you down there.
Me? Me?
Yes.
I'm more than okay. I am inspired, grateful, and this was such a terrific conversation. Thank you so much. I am much more than okay right now.
Amen.
And I want to say, Gabby, I didn't realize that you are now actually co-director of the Othello production, not assistant director, not associate director, co-director. This is the best news. I am thrilled to hear that, and that makes the production even more exciting to me. I cannot wait for it to open. So,
Indeed.
major congratulations. Debra Ann, I have two things for you. Just first, a quick comment. I heard you say that you're ready to do some Molière, among other things. And I want to say that as a French scholar invested in uncovering the presence of the Black Baroque and early modern French drama, I say go for it, Debra Ann. Do Molière. He needs you. He needs you really badly. So I'm here for that.
Okay.
And second, quick question. Go ahead. You wanted to add something.
Oh yeah, because as soon as you said that, I realized that one of the things that I'm absolutely going to do when I'm finished with Becoming Othello, and I don't know when I'm finished with Becoming Othello, is I'm going to write the Henrietta Vinton Davis story called Almost Erased or Almost Forgotten, the Henrietta Vinton Davis story. And that's going to be really, really important. But I can't wait to try some Molière and really just see how we can bring maybe you can help me with the dramaturgy and we can bring some Black French to it.
I would love that. Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. It's going to happen. But I have a quick question for you before that happens. So I was so excited to hear, of course, that the play is going to go live. I'm wondering whether there will be a play script, whether you're planning on having the play printed so that I can add it to my syllabus next
Yes,
time.
I will. I will have it printed. I just don't know exactly when, and figure out who is going to publish it, because we already have publishers looking at Becoming Othello, the memoir part. But Becoming Othello, this play script, is something else we're thinking about. And we're also, trying to chat with some people about audiobook. We're thinking about a whole lot of things, but this Becoming Othello is really doing something. So yeah, we're going to see who wants to print, who wants to publish it. We have to see who wants to do that. Whether it's one of the companies that normally do the classic books, or whether it's a TCG, or whether it's Samuel French, we don't know, but we're open and, willing to be in talks with folks. I have no agents. I need some agents. I need acting agent, writing agent, literary agent. I need some kind of folks to help me out here.
Yes,
so we can get these things done and get these stories and messages and scholarship. A lot of scholarship I found, in my studies. I can't wait to share all of that with the students. It's been beautiful sharing with the students and with the scholars as well, and the teachers mostly. Because if I can get to the teachers, then they can teach this stuff. And then maybe professors won't tell little Black kids that they won't have a career in the this or the that, because tradition says that it's not possible. Mm-hmm. It is possible.
Absolutely. You do need help, because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a lot of options for publishers for this play. And talking about students and you reaching out to teachers into the classroom, I want to mention that Gabby and I are really excited to receive you tomorrow to our class. Our students who are here today listening to you, I'm sure are looking forward also to be able to ask you more questions directly. So thanks for doing that work, of not just showing up for the interview, but also coming to the smaller classrooms and to engage.
Absolutely. That's important. That's important. Absolutely. Thank you.
I want, once again, to conclude, to wrap up this event, I want to thank once again our brilliant guests, Debra Ann Byrd, Gabriel Randall Bent, for sharing their expertise, their brilliance, their talent, and their grace so generously with us today. I couldn't think of a better way of concluding this iteration of the Black Baroque series. I wanted to say that you were setting the bar really high for any subsequent event, but really the metaphor does not even apply anymore. It's just a whole new paradigm. So this is how we're going to do it from now on. Our guests this spring, so you, Gabby, Debra Ann, but also French choreographer Bintou Dembélé, whom we received a couple of weeks ago, and Keith Hamilton Cobb, who was with us last week, have inspired me, I hope inspired many of our spectators, and given us a lot to think about and to process. What does Baroque performance culture have to offer to the African diaspora and its artists today? What do we learn about Baroque culture when we look at it through the lens of Black studies and of decolonial epistemologies? And what cultural work can the concepts, values, and practices which the Black Baroque names do for us in 2021 on the many sides of the Atlantic Ocean? That's the question. The thinking continues. It will take many forms. We're not done. Our exploration of the Black Baroque at UChicago is only getting started. I invite all interested spectators, scholars, and artists to join us on this journey. So please stay tuned for more updates in the future on the Black Baroque project. And be well in the meantime. How did you put it, Gabby? What was that final word?
Just let that be okay. Just
yeah.
go ahead and let that be okay.
Let that be okay. Calm down and let that be okay.
Calm down and let that be okay. Sounds excellent. Thank you. Be well.
Blessings. Blessings, ladies. Thank you. Mwah.